Hi folks, in this video we're going to be looking at outcome 2.3 of the Factors Impacting Performance Unit Assessment in National 5 PE. And what I've got on the screen here is an outline or a template that you're going to be using to create your own personal development programme. And this will be working towards your target to improve an area of your performance that you've identified as a particular weakness. And I'm using this template to show you how you should structure each session and also what other information you'll need to include within your training programme in order to ensure that you pass outcome 2.3. So to start off with, for each session you should always have a warm-up, and it's totally up to you what warm-up you want to use, but basically your warm-up, the purpose will be to get you to prepare your body to participate in the training session. So as an example here, I've just got a couple of exercises that you could use and some stretches that you would use before you play badminton. Ideally, in your session template, you should go into slightly more detail than I have here and mention the specific muscles that are being warmed up. The first thing you should then do when choosing your development approaches is name the approach that you're going to use. You should also mention the skill which you will be developing through this approach, and then describe in detail how this drill is going to be set up. So for example, for this shadow practice drill, it might be to work on your overhead clear, and the drill might be set up by you starting in the middle of the court and moving to certain areas of the court where you'll then perform the correct technique for performing the overhead clear. You should also speak about what you're going to be focusing on in this drill. So for the shadow practice, this would be focusing on the correct technique for performing the overhead clear. You should also, for the second development approach that you're going to use in session 1, then show some progression and work on a slightly harder drill. So once we've practiced the technique in the shadow practice drill, the natural progression would be introduced as to a rally-like situation. So I've suggested for session 1 a repetition drill should be used. Again, you should mention what skill you're going to be developing. So if our development programme is to improve our overhead clear, we might say I did a repetition drill to improve my overhead clear, and then go on and describe in detail how this drill was set up. Was it that you had a feeder and they were feeding you consecutive shuttles allowing you to practice performing the overhead clear? Was it that you performed a rally and you attempted to develop your consistency by keeping that rally going for as long as possible? You should also mention where on the court you played the shot from, and these different aspects of how the drill was set up will change as you go on to make these type of drills more harder in your future sessions. You should also then look at the second column here and use this part which says how do you feel this session went as your training diary. So here you're going to comment on how well the particular drills that you used worked and how effective they were at allowing you to develop the skill you were working on. So you might want to say the shadow drill worked well because it allowed you to focus on the correct technique for performing the shot, and you developed the feeling for how to perform this action correctly. You should then reflect on drill 2 and mention that the repetition drill allowed you to develop your consistency or your fluency or your accuracy performing this shot, and that you felt you've really improved as a result of this session. But it's important to be honest, if you felt the drill didn't work, you should mention that as well at this point. Finally, you should include some information on how you monitored your progress, and this is vital during each particular training session, as we need to know and you need to use some form of feedback to allow us to evaluate the success of the session. So an example you could use is I used video to get feedback on my performance during this session, as this allowed me to see if I was performing this technique successfully or if I was performing the shot accurately and on a consistent basis. So this is just an example of the information that you should include for one training session. You should complete this format or this template for a minimum of 3 training sessions. But also bear in mind when you're creating your training programme that there has to be progression between the sessions. So as you used a repetition drill during session 1, session 2, if you got the hang of it and you felt the session went well, you should use a slightly more complex drill, make it slightly harder, and ensuring there's progression as you progress during the course of your training programme.